Hey guys, it's RC, and I am back to do a introductory build or an introductory video to my settlement in Sanctuary Hills, and also a character build synopsis. So just real quick before we get into the actual build, let me kind of give some background on what the genesis of my idea here was. First off, let me say that if you watch some of the guys like No Respawns that do these huge, fully decked out and blown up mega building settlements, that's not me. I'm not that talented. As my YouTube channel says, I'm just an everyday gamer. I may work my way up to that at some point, and I find that as I move along in playing, I get better and a little more detail oriented. But you have to keep in mind, I just started playing Fallout. Let's see, I'm recording this right at the end of February 2017. I just started playing this during the holidays last year, right around Thanksgiving. It went on sale on Steam, and I picked it up to give it a try. I had never played a Fallout series before. I had gotten New Vegas, but honestly didn't get very far in it and just wasn't sucked in like I have been with Fallout 4. But at one of the community sites that I am a frequent member of and a contributor is the Tamriel Vaults. And they specialize in discussion and character builds for both Elder Scrolls and Fallout series games. And so I've been, mostly I was over there for Skyrim, and I've gotten into Fallout, as I said. And one of the topics of discussion was realistic settlement building, realistic character creation, and trying to avoid the pitfalls of using basically because you can level up to level 100. Basically what we end up seeing is every character looks about the same for the most part, because you can take pretty much every perk there is. And so what I did, let's kind of take a look at my special here. We'll do a little bit of character background, and then we'll get into the settlement building. But you can see here, you have to put in all 28 points at character creation. But they always say putting an equal amount of points across the board is about the worst thing you can do, because basically that's hamstringing yourself from taking perks, at least right away. Well, I put points into strength. I only need to get really to 3 for armor, so I dumped 3 extra points that I don't need there, although that will help me with hauling. I put 6 in charisma to get to local leader for the settlement building. And where I really wanted points was in agility and luck. So I'm going to have to add points here as I level up to take those perks once I get to that point. Eventually I'm going to want these to be at around 7 or 8 for agility, and maybe as high as 9 for luck, potentially. So by putting points where they don't need to go, I kind of hamstring myself, and it's almost like force starting your character to really be a true noob when they come out of the vault. Now let's take a look at how I have worked with my settlement. Another discussion topic was to have each settlement be themed for a particular vibe. One trading depot, one security, one medical, whatever. I kind of go against that because I feel if I lived in one of these settlements, and I was dependent on another settlement for, say, food or water, what happens if that provisioner gets attacked by super mutants and killed, and we have to wait a whole nother season for a shipment of food stuff? We may starve to death, or have to resort to being raiders ourselves on surrounding settlements, and basically attacking our friends in order to survive. So I think it makes sense for me, from my play style, that you would want a little bit of everything in your own settlement. The other thing I wanted to do is, I have already gone through and scrapped everything I'm going to scrap in this settlement, and yet you notice there's a lot of trees around. The junk houses that are unlivable are still here, and I felt that human beings coming out of the vault, especially remembering the pre-war world, from what you see at the beginning of the game, would not really want to destroy the trees if they could help it. So the only trees that I scrapped were the ones that were already fallen on the ground. I am not scrapping any of the big ones. So we are going to be looking to develop a farming community to where we can raise crops and water through moisture farms, to generate caps that then we can buy the goods that we need to do our settlement building from vendors. And that's going to be kind of the concept of my settlement building. And you can play these characters one of two ways. You can be basically a farmer type, so to speak, where you're really not out questing very much, and you're basically trying to sustain off of water and crop growing at each one of your settlements. Or you can be a full-blown adventure type and go from there, just like a normal character, and then have your settlers be the worker bees, so to speak. So again, let's kind of take a look. Starting here at the entrance, I always block off access into my backside here into the waterway. I don't want them to be able to get back there because, of course, the yellow house up there is our workbench area, and I want them to be able to grow crops back here and probably do some building back here as well. So we've put in some junk walls here to block off that area. I do want the houses to be sustainable, so we've blocked off access to the doorway. Basically everything's going to be accessible from the other side. We've got a little bit of defense up here for anybody coming in up here in the front. And again, you notice we did not scrap any of our houses that needed to be scrapping. Now on this one, for example, what I noticed, we had to build walls here, because if we had built it farther back like I had planned, they could actually scale the roof and climb over the roof here. Not sure if I can get over it from this way. Yeah, I can. I don't know if an NPC will do that, but you know, you can see that you can climb it from that way. Typically what I would do is, you can see a fence right there where my cursor's pointing. I initially blocked that off, and I would have blocked it off here, and this area would have been unusable in a building situation. Now, by building the wall out here to block off this little ramp that allows us to climb this thing, it keeps us, and you can see basically you just walk on top. So hopefully none of the NPC and attackers can attack that. I haven't really started building this side outside of a guard shack, but I will do something similar. I will probably build walls around the driveway and out to here, and we'll have a gateway here at some point. But I like the full house because look what it does. Instead of being able to walk across the foundation, you actually have to walk around it which from an attacking standpoint, it funnels them into a certain area. So we could create a kill zone right here of some sorts by making them move around here and say having a gateway right here with turrets along the top. So again, we've got another junk here with another turret. And then here's our workshop where we've moved everything inside. Now I've just started planning back here, so this is still early going for this particular build. I have some tomatoes going over here, but let's go take a look at the back side of this wall. So again, here we go. We can get up here, we can get into the house, we can use that for sleeping quarters. It has some defenses, but attackers cannot come in this way. All right, so that's kind of one process that I had, that everything's going to take place through the back alleys of the houses once you get inside the settlement, when we do build our main gateway, which will be right up in that area. Coming down this way again, we're going to utilize these houses, and here's an example of that. So we know there's a spawn point back here, so they're not going to be able to get through the house because it's still here. So we've got a guard post with a couple of turrets facing out here. But this is what I did with the house that is unlivable. This is the one that you would normally scrap from the get-go. So I have built in here just a small dwelling. So we've got the refrigerator back there with a lamp on it, a little sitting area looking out the windows, a cabinet with the ham radio, some lights, mattresses. They're roughing it in here. You have a few odds and ends, the Minuteman flag, ammo boxes, a little cooler, a couple of coolers, duffel bag. You've got the washer, and then you've got the little table that you can hang clothes out to dry, radio, a little bathroom area, for cleaning up in the morning. A couple of potted plants, another dresser. Not going overboard. And then this is something, when I put the floor in, I put it right at the roof line, just like you would with any of the other houses. Well, with the destruction of the house, you've got some of these metal pieces that jet up. Well, I can walk through those with no problem. Now, it's this one I have to climb over. So what I did is I set my couch up, basically using that as an extended table. So I was able to put a candle on there and use that as part of the furniture. Same thing on this side. You've got that kind of as a little table between the two chairs, and they've got candles and a lantern on there. So nothing too fancy. Now, over on that side where the garage is, you can see it was extra junky, and so we had to go up a second floor, and we've got a few odds and end pieces that protrude up here, but again, that's kind of the norm. We fenced that in. We can put some guard mats down here if we need to. I can eventually replace the roofs with flooring and build a second floor here if I want to do that. But I think going up to basically a second story is going to be more than enough, for what we want to do and not have to go super high. And then, again, we can come in and we can put more flooring in here and get things up to a second level, and then build here elevated over the spawn point to where they have to come under the house. And, maybe we can build a clinic up there with a wraparound walkway to over here. Something of that nature, or we just leave this open and we just add on to the existing houses as well. Now again, I haven't done a ton of decorating, mostly just rearranging furniture, adding in some beds. Mama Murphy's kind of hanging out there. So we've got a few beds in here. I tried to use the philosophy of keeping everything inside Um, there we go. Um, Keeping everything inside. Oh, let me take those. Cool. Um, so only the things that were like really junked out. In this room, you may remember we had the little file cabinet, but then we had a big one with no drawers in it, so we got rid of that. But most of the stuff we're actually just keeping in. We've actually sealed up the walls with windows. I will put a floor in here to block off the ceiling at some point. Uh, Maybe I may leave that, but this one actually had a good window in it. This one I think is fine. Um, I do need to come in and put some electricity and hang up some odds and ends. Um, but that's kind of my philosophy, is to utilize the rundown houses instead of junking them to build on top of them. And then, of course, building in the houses that are able to be lived in. Now, some of these you can see I have not gotten to yet. So I haven't even set up the table, as I'm working my way. And I usually work from the back here. Now, the other thing that I was playing over the weekend, and I ended up having an attack come from across the river. I had never had that. It was mechanoids that came across the river right there where those rocks jut out, and they just forded across right here, and I think you can see the corpses of a few of them out there. Let's see. Yeah, there's one right there. I think there's one farther over there. Some of them actually got onto this side. Here's one right here, and I think there was one, yep, over here. So they actually came across, and I was like, wow, that's going to leave my water system open to attack. So you'll notice what I've done is I have built these elevated platforms. This one I raised higher than that one, and it's due to the height of this retaining wall. That's kind of what I was using as a touch point. And I wanted it basically right over it so I could snap the little fencing parts like I have on that one over there. So I've put in a junk fence here to kind of take away that low section that they could get up onto this side for one. And I figured I would go with just one. I'm using missile turrets, which I don't normally suggest using in the settlement itself, because they can kill your settlers. However, anything, settlers aren't going to cross the river. So this is strictly for anything coming across and threatening my water plant. So I'm going to go with just this one for right now, with 3 missile turrets and 2 spotlights. And then if I need to expand on that, I've already laid out the flooring over here. And again, by building that here, we've also addressed this low spot right there. And so, anything coming across is going to run into a lot of problems. And again, you can see we did not cut down any of the mature trees. The only trees that I'm cutting down are anything that are labeled as a blasted tree, which Oberlin Station has some of those. Basically, they would look like that, but they're actually called a blasted tree when you highlight it. So those are the only standing trees that I'm cutting. Everything else I'm leaving alone because, it gives us that natural look, and I think that would be something that, the human species would be looking for. And again, you can see this house here, juts right up against this hedge and creates an impassable barrier. So anybody that it would be attacking, say from that spawn point there, can't go that way. They have to come right here or right here. So if we build some defenses right here, then that gives them something else as an obstacle they have to go through. and then again, just like we did there, we can end up building on top of this house at some point. So anyway, that's kind of my start to my settlement. Haven't gotten too far. We've only got 12 beds in place. I do have 101 defense, mostly because of the turrets that I have out. The missile turrets are pretty stout, but you can see I have 150 water set in as well. And eventually we'll come and we will start building walls here. Probably what I will, what I usually do at this house is I build a wall out to here and then come out this way to the curb, and then I have a fence across the way with turrets facing out, and I put a couple of turrets facing this way because I know there's a spawn point. But it does make sense that you would be facing the main entrance location. And again, the goal with the fencing is to be able to keep the houses usable for the settlers, but also to funnel any attackers out and into the main killing alley to where they have to run a gauntlet. So we'll probably have a turret between each house or on the corner of a house at some point. Not sure how far we're going to go with that. I don't really want to make my settlements completely devoid of attacks, because honestly I do like to get attacked. That's where I can get gunner gear and whatnot to put to dress up my settlers in. So anyway, that is what I'm looking at here. Again, I don't think I'm doing anything earth-shattering from a build perspective. For sure I'm not. That's bare minimum for some people, but I'm going to kind of try to keep each settlement as basic as it is, because again, I don't think that in the concept of the game as the lone survivor that you're going to be really trying to build these, turn these wastelands into New York City or recreate Boston or anything like that. You're just going to be kind of making do with what you can, and that's my take on the settlement. For right or for wrong. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to go about it. But anyway, I do like a few of the things that I've done here. This is kind of an accumulation of some ideas that I have done in past builds, that I've done by playing. Some ideas that have been put out for discussion over at the vaults that I've gotten involved in, and just some information that I've gleaned from all of those discussions as well. One of the other things that I'll typically do is I will actually seal off this fence here. The last thing you want is the guys to spawn out here and then just run through the backyard to be able to circumvent all your defenses. So use the hedges. I'll put in some fences here and here, junk fences, to block that off. And then I'll remove the gate and put a solid fence there to hopefully force them to go out the front. And then all these other ones that are knocked down between the houses won't matter. I just have to worry about creating this back row. And you see that tree's falling on the ground. That's an example of one that I would scrap because it's on the ground. That would be something you could just pick up while you were walking by, but I would not cut down any of these larger trees. And again, I just have not started developing this side of the settlement yet. There's another tree that we'll be able to get. Unfortunately, you cannot get that tree once you've gotten the duffel bag on top. But there's a little bit more wood on that side. But that's just a look at my settlement and where it's at right now, where we're thinking about going with it. It's going to be very low key. try to blend in with the surrounding, try to make sense from a, where I think you would be. I mean, if you're trying to survive day to day, and you're worried about being attacked, you're not going to really worry about building these huge megapolises in this time frame, in this time period. So I find that to be, for me, that's a little unrealistic, and this makes a little more sense from a perspective of where you might find yourself. Oh, cool. A spatula. I didn't even know you could find stuff in the mailboxes. That's cool. So anyway, hope that helps, or at least gives some insight as to what I'll be doing. Naturally, as I play and get a little more development, we'll do some updates at some point. But this is pretty early on here in the development. I'm just working on the one side right now, and the next thing will be to work on sealing off this spawn point and getting our gatehouse set up, which with the house here, we may actually run it from here, just for realistic sake. We may run it across from here to this corner, and then that puts this entrance behind the wall, and then this house with the top on it would be behind the wall. Now this would be a weak point because these guys could get in, but we could incorporate this guard post and some turrets, some rearward facing turrets facing this way off that gatehouse, and then do something else along those lines. Maybe what we did down there is I could mount some turrets on some of the scaffolding stands right here on the side, just to give some added punch to the defense right there. And eventually you are going to be attacked in real life, and so you would have to fight them off and get all your settlers to come out. So anyway, thanks for checking it out. Like I said, not sure if it was good, certainly not great, but I like where it's heading. I like the thought process in it, for me at least, and we'll see how it turns out. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.